Let's freeze it over here if we can. We can just freeze right. Now this is important because at this stage, the aircraft is like this, right? Normally an aircraft would peel off like this, but as part of the signature maneuver in a negative G context, the Tejas can actually fly like this to a certain extent. Very few fighter jets actually have a fly-by-wire system which is capable of doing this. The pilot at this stage, play the next frame, please. The next couple of frames, I'll tell you to freeze. Right there, stop. At this stage, the aircraft has departed, and is sort of nose down at this stage. Whether the pilot was trying to do a roll out of that negative maneuver, we don't really know, but there was no altitude here. Move to the next frame. Stop over here. At this stage, the pilot is level, wings up. So he has managed to come from this position. He's turned, he's rolled, and he is wings level at this stage. But the rate of descent over here is just too fast. And unfortunately, at this stage, the aircraft, let's roll out that video, just doesn't have the altitude to sort of trade at this stage. If there were a few hundred feet more, and if the pilot was all right, and I would suggest the pilot was, because the aircraft was maneuvering right till the end, I would suggest the pilot would have pulled out of that very, very easily. Group Captain Augustine Vinod, that negative G maneuver, the video shows it quite clearly. It's a signature Tejas maneuver, and to come out of that, you would possibly roll, right? You would roll to come out of that. That's when something seems to have gone wrong. That's what the video seems to indicate. Your thoughts?
A couple of things, Shiv.
Vishnu, here, go ahead.
Sorry, a couple of things, Vishnu. One is when he has pulled out, like you correctly said, when he has pulled out, the nose is above the horizon.
Yes.
I mean, as a pilot, I can putting myself in the cockpit and seeing this. I would be seeing the sky, and would be probably more or less certain that I am, going to get out of the situation, or I have already got out of the situation. But it is this mush. It is the time the nose comes above the horizon to the time the aeroplane responds to the control to the input of the pilot is finite. And Vishnu, this time is variable. It is variable on two accounts. One, the rate at which he pulled out, and two, and most importantly, I've been saying this in a couple of channels, is the temperature conditions. The same maneuver done in the morning and the same maneuver done in a desert area like UAE in the afternoon would be different because the air is thinner. The mush is much, much higher when the air is thinner. At high altitude, ranges, when we do very close to the ground, we come and drop a bomb and get out. The air is so thin that you can feel the mush. The nose is well above the horizon, but your vertical speed indicator is still showing a descent, and you can feel that you are going in towards the ground and you're not coming out. So that is where I will, I'm not trying to hazard a guess. By the time official report comes out, it will be 2-3 months down the road. And like you, I'm also trying to find out what could be the reason. And like you correctly brought out, Vishnu, is completely under control till the time the aeroplane hit the ground, and the pilot is completely maneuvering the aeroplane. So the conditions of G-lock, etc., can be safely ruled out because he is still maneuvering the aeroplane positively. So the
just break that up for the benefit of our viewers. What the group captain is basically saying is that he's ruling out G-lock. G-lock is something which takes place when a pilot performs an extreme G maneuver, whether it's a positive G or a negative G. In that scenario, you either enter into a blackout situation, or in a negative G like this, you get into a red out situation. Both of these can be potentially fatal. This happens sometimes despite the pilots always wearing G suits. But the fact that the wings at the end, last few moments of the flight of the aircraft, came around, the pilot was back level, and it appears had started to try and get out of that, but the vertical speed was just too great, meant that there was no time for that. So perhaps it was the pilot was maneuvering all around. in which case one of the possibilities that they would look at is, was the pilot at the right altitude to be doing the maneuver that he was, or what was the reason or the circumstance in which that negative G bank resulted in a loss of altitude? Why exactly did that take place? Again, it's a split-second thing. There is very little altitude, and this was the lowest part of the altitude profile of this particular display. I've seen this negative G maneuver. They do it all the time, and they snap out of it quite quickly. But what Group Captain strikes me is that something went wrong where in that negative G maneuver, he rolled out of it, but then in the process lost altitude when there was no altitude to be had.
Absolutely. In fact, if you look at this Colonel Slab's accident in Poland, August of this year, we tweeted about it. I think you covered it as well. Very similar recovery, technique in which the pilot had a few more, I wouldn't say 100 feet, Vishnu, maybe 20, 30 feet he could have safely gotten out of the situation. Like I said, looking at the mush, because I've been in these mush conditions many a times in my life, many a times, and in the hot condition over Pokhran, in the morning I have done a firing and gone, and in the afternoon when I'm coming for firing again, and we come very close to the ground at 30-40 degrees dive and open fire and getting out of this mush. And in the afternoon times, I've felt many a times that the mush was much higher than what it was in the morning, because air gets thinner in the afternoon. So it is the same profile, it is the same checkpoint that you have when you enter a maneuver. And like you said, Vishnu, correctly, you have multiple checkpoints when you're carrying out low-level aerobatics, and you memorize them, you can't read them. So you memorize every maneuver's checkpoint. You exactly know, when I'm doing a negative G maneuver, what should be my altitude, what should be my speed. When I, snap out of that negative G maneuver into a barrel roll, what should be my altitude, what should be my speed, etc. So all that is precisely calculated, is precisely rehearsed, and it precisely is executed. But then, Vishnu, you've been in this aeroplane, you've flown enough. The margin at low level, especially when you're carrying out low-level aerobatics, is wafer thin. And it has no aspersions cast on the capability of the aircraft. Vishnu, we have seen umpteen F-16 crashes, umpteen F-35 crashes, but they still sell. Professional air forces, professional people, professional pilots know as low-level aerobatics, and a crash in a low-level aerobatics has nothing to do with the capability of the aeroplane, because capability of the aeroplane is today much more technical in nature than its maneuverability capability, or when you're walking very on the ice.
I think,
very thin margin.
Group Captain, you make such an important point. This is a plane that flew first in 2001. There has been one crash of the Tejas which has been fatal, this one. The one which took place before this, and there have been only 2 crashes since 2001, took place when there was an engine malfunction. The pilot safely ejected. This is an aircraft with the best safety record among any fighter in the Indian Air Force fleet. So it's not the Tejas. That has been, it's been tested and tested over and over again. It has a made in India fly-by-wire control system that's redundant over four axes, right? It's 4 times. It's a quadruple redundant fly-by-wire control system. What is a fly-by-wire control system? These are computers which are enmeshed with the flying surfaces of the aircraft, which actually ensure that the aircraft flies. This is an unstable design. It's not like a glider which you can make from a piece of paper and it flies because of natural aerodynamics. The shape of the Tejas is unstable. It's unstable because it needs to do a lot of the turns that you've actually seen today. To ensure that the aircraft still flies despite its aerodynamic configuration means you need to have an excellent top-of-the-line fly-by-wire control system that's entirely made in India, and it's been incredibly safe so far. The engine is a very reliable American F404 engine. The Indian Air Force has no problems with the engine. It's extremely reliable, as we know. There are other aspects of the airframe which are, they hold up just fine. If there is a mechanical error, we'll find out about it. But I think the point, Group Captain, that I'm trying to make is that don't blame this on the Tejas and write off the Tejas aircraft, because that's instantly what's going to start happening if it hasn't already on social media.
Absolutely. Vishnu, 13 or 12 or 13 crashes of F-35 in itself still sells. So the aspect is, I mean, you brought it out very clearly. You look at the aeroplane very, very closely on the top right corner. You can see the slats are out. These slats are automatically controlled by the fly-by-wire control computer. Pilot's input is a command or a desired command to the computer, and the computer decides how much of elevons to be, or the control surface to deflect, without overstressing the aeroplane to give you that kind of maneuver. For example, if I'm at very high speed and I get the stick fully back, and if the aeroplane can pull 9 Gs or 9 G of acceleration, it will give you only 9 G of acceleration. It will not take you to 10 or 11 or 12 or 13. If it does, the aeroplane may overstress and in extreme cases may even break up. In a manual control aeroplane, your controlling of G was with the pilot. You have to look at the G meter and control it yourself, not in a fly-by-wire aeroplane. In a fly-by-wire aeroplane, the computer takes care of that. When you are at low speed regime, the slats come out to tell you, to give you that extra lift. And also it will not let you stall the aeroplane even if you mishandle control. So that is why fly-by-wire is extremely important, piece of hardware that is in modern fighters to give you a carefree kind of handling. But the flip side to that is, in a low-level aerobatic condition.
Group Captain Vinod, just bear with me for just a moment. I want to jump in for just a second because I want to get a report from the ground from Abhishek, who is reporting from the Dubai Airshow. Abhishek, what is the latest that you're hearing right now in terms of what's happening at the crash site, and anything else you can share with us right now?
Yeah, there's just been one update. As you can see, there's noise back on. There's a public announcement. They just mentioned that flying was suspended for a while and it's going to resume now. 3:40 local time, so it should start any minute. And the first aerobatics is going to be by Russian Knights team, and they're going to display their Sukhoi. So that's the first. So that's the resumption of the aerobatics, which has been a huge attraction at this 5-day affair that happens every 2 years. So that's the only update. The public service announcement also mentioned that everything is under control. Situation is controlled, and they did not go into the details of what exactly happened. All of that, all of what we've been already talking about on air.
So there's no flying that's taking place. There's no flying that's taking place at the moment around you, is there?
Yeah. So this is the last. You could say the last half of the final day of the Dubai Airshow. So that's the runway is just behind this, which is the common runway that everybody uses here.
Right.
That's the official Dubai Airshow sort of porch. You will see a lot of aircraft on display. Emirates has one of the largest fleet of Airbus A380. One of them is on display there. And there are also fighter jets from different countries. Almost 200 top fighter jets are on display from 98 countries. And, one attraction at this festival of aviation has been the aerobatics performance, which happens around this time every day. Today is the last day. It was obviously temporarily suspended because of the incident. So Dubai authorities have not gone into the details. They've just said there's been an incident and the situation is under control. So you can hear the public announcement blurting out from this area. Russian Knights, as you just heard, is going to now take off and display their Sukhoi just any minute.
All right,
now.
I'm just interrupting you for a moment because what we see now is the first visual from the site of the accident. It's it's in Dubai. It's in an embankment or just off an embankment. Shiv, there's nothing left. I mean, there's nothing to be said. The fire is out, and frankly, there is no debris. It's just mushed into the ground at an extreme vertical speed.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Vishnu. There's nothing here at all. Those are pictures of a fire crash tender. The first responders with a hose putting out the smoking wreckage of that Tejas. And even though the aircraft, didn't, fly like a missile into the ground, like we pointed out in that picture, the aircraft was flat and level and kind of just like flew into the ground. There would be nothing left. There'd be the mangled remains of the aircraft. That's what you see the first responders putting out the fire from. In the video that we saw, obviously there was a huge fireball because the aircraft was full of fuel. It exploded on impact, a huge plume of smoke, but all of that has been brought under control. Abhishek's live report from Dubai tells us that flying is about to resume at the Dubai Airshow. That gives you a sense of how the show moves on despite this tragedy, and that's how things roll at air shows, because they do have standard operating procedures for when accidents take place, but the show itself must continue because there are many more aircraft and many more pilots that have to fly and conduct their work at the Dubai Air Show. But this spotlight right now, this image that we have just off the flying tarmac, not very far from it, we'll try and get a Google map up in a moment, Vishnu, once we have some coordinates about precisely where this aircraft flew into the ground. But this is that first visual of the crash site where that Tejas, with a wing commander rank pilot behind the stick, flying into the ground and exploding. What a tragic, tragic image. Nothing left of that aircraft. No reason to believe that the aircraft was out of control. There didn't appear to be anything technically wrong with the aircraft either. It just appears to have been a colossal lack of time and margin that the aircraft pilot was left with before the aircraft actually hit the ground. So at this point of time, in terms of procedure, very quickly, Vishnu, the forensics, the court of inquiry members of the Indian Air Force will of course be on the ground to get whatever they can from the crash site before the recovery and salvage operations remove what's left of this mangled mess. True tragedy, Vishnu.
There are two squadrons of the Tejas aircraft. Both are based in Sulur. The Indian Air Force has plans to base the aircraft elsewhere as well. There's the number 18 squadron, the Flying Bullets squadron, and then there is another squadron, which is the number 45 squadron, the Flying Daggers squadron. They've both been based in Sulur. I'm not certain whether both of them are still based there, but the Tejas, as more aircraft join service with the Indian Air Force, will be deployed to frontline bases as well. The Tejas Mark 1 is what exists right now in the final operational clearance Tejas Mark 1 aircraft, which is not the most advanced variant. There is the Tejas Mark 1A, which is slowly coming into service, but has been inducted in very, very small numbers, just one odd aircraft in an advanced stage of being inducted into the Indian Air Force. So it's a plane from one of these two squadrons which have gone down. There are approximately 36 single-seat Tejas aircraft and a handful of trainers which are there in service with the Indian Air Force.
Vishnu, the Chief of Defence Staff has just put out a statement. I just want to read out the statement for our viewers right now. General Anil Chauhan, the Chief of Defence Staff, our senior-most military officer, says, "The CDS and all ranks of the Indian Armed Forces deeply regret the incident in which an Indian Air Force Tejas aircraft met with an accident during an aerial display at the Dubai Air Show today. The pilot sustained fatal injuries in the accident. We deeply regret the loss of life and stand firmly with the bereaved family in this time of grief." So we have that statement coming in from the Chief of Defence Staff. I can also obviously confirm, Vishnu, as you are hearing as well, that the Indian Air Force Chief, Air Chief Marshal Amarpreet Singh, has been fully briefed on the accident. He is speaking with his commanders and team in Dubai. There is a detachment commander in Dubai who's in touch with the air headquarters, with the family of the pilot, who will only be identified once the Indian Air Force releases his name, because remember, next of kin procedures are detailed and they have to be gone through. So we will not be one of those networks that jumps the gun and takes any names or identifies the pilot at this point of time. But amidst all the grief, amidst all the pain and the absolutely stinging details of this tragedy, there is work to do for the Indian Air Force, Vishnu. They don't have the time for the moment to sit around. They've got to get to work to investigate the crash, to keep the family protected, to give them the information that they need at this point of time, to liaise with the authorities in the United Arab Emirates, of which Dubai is a part, to conduct, whatever needs to be done in terms of salvaging the aircraft parts from that mangled mess, bring them all back to India so that the court of inquiry can be conducted in full measure. There are many, many layers to what comes next, and I think we're looking at all of those here on NDTV, decoding every aspect of it. Fighter pilots who are with us, including Group Captain Augustine Vinod, helping us understand what it is like in a fighter cockpit. Both Vishnu and I have been in fighter cockpits. Obviously, nothing even remotely close to the kind of dangerous flying you see at aerial displays at the Dubai Airshow and elsewhere. But even the small window of experience that Vishnu and I have had in fighter aircraft cockpits will tell you that this is a dangerous business. This is a risky business. It is a business that requires an extreme amount of capability, which is why fighter pilots are, they really are tiger aviators. They're able to react very quickly. Their brains move extremely fast. They're able to take decisions at a split second, very, very close to the margins of life and death. Those tiny little seconds before, a decision one way or the other, a single piece of input one way or the other in that flight stick can mean the aircraft simply spins out of control. All of these factors mean that aerial display flying, which is what this particular Tejas fighter of the Indian Air Force was indulging in successfully for many, many years, by the way. This isn't the first time, in case anyone was wondering whether the Tejas hasn't done this before. For years now, the Tejas has gone to Bahrain, it has gone to Malaysia, it's gone to Australia, they've gone to a couple of other places in the Middle East as well, and Dubai, not for the first time, where Tejas fighters, perhaps even this particular fighter and this particular pilot, have conducted myriad air display routines, enthralled audiences in different parts of the region, and has been such an incredible talking point and a beloved aircraft and a beloved flight display for many, many years. So nobody should ever think of casting an aspersion on the safety of the aircraft, the proficiency of the pilot, the capability of the Indian Air Force. Let that be very, very clear. This aircraft has some of the safest, the highest safety records of any comparable fighter in the region or indeed around the world. And as Vishnu said, the Tejas fighter currently exists in 2 squadrons based in Tamil Nadu at this point of time. The Indian Air Force has ordered at least 180 more of an improved version of the Tejas, which are going to start entering service very soon. Those are more capable fighters in every way. But this kind of an accident is a freak accident because everything about it is risky, and yet those in those cockpits are perhaps the best people to do them. So this is going to be a difficult investigation, Vishnu.
No, it is. One of the squadrons, I think, now in Nalia. So one in Sulur, one in Nalia. But be that as it may, and I don't know which squadron aircraft was involved in this, and we'll get details on the pilot, once it releases this. The family will have been informed of this. And this is what I said a little while earlier on. The way it works is that before the Indian Air Force confirms a fatal crash, what actually takes place is that they inform the family members, and then they actually come out with that, which is what they've done in this particular case. Just one point which I'd like to mention, and I've flown on the Tejas aircraft, as have you, Shiv. The quadruple redundant fly-by-wire control system, it sounds complicated for our viewers. Basically, the electronic control system which guides the aircraft is extremely forgiving. It's actually designed to aid and assist the pilot in all flight profiles. But with no altitude available over here, it was just too late. What finally took place when the pilot appeared to be in a signature move of the Tejas, which is a negative G maneuver in a bank when the aircraft actually comes by this way instead of pulling away in this direction. What caused that? We don't know. But as it entered into that negative bank, it appeared to get into a roll with no altitude. The wings finally ended up being level, but then the vertical speed was too high, and the aircraft mushed into the ground. I would suggest another few hundred feet, and the pilot would have pulled out. Augustine Vinod, Group Captain Augustine Vinod, who's been with us sort of seems to concur with my preliminary assessment just based on the video of what we've seen, that the pilot would have been, fighting at the controls till the very end. Group Captain Vinod, are you still there with us? All right, we'll come back to him in a little while from now. But again, I think it's important for all of us to just, spare a thought for the pilot who's lost his life, for the family members over there. This is not uncommon in air crashes. It's happened all over the world. The Air Force will be looking at this very, very clearly. This is a major international air display in Dubai. But a single split-second error, if it was a pilot error, can result in a tragedy like this. I dare say that there was separation between the aircraft and the audience, so that was not a factor at all. And unfortunately, at a critical low altitude, I would suggest the lowest part of the flight display is when there appears to be something which went wrong in that aircraft, right about there, which you're going to see when the aircraft went vertically, or the vertical speed was too sharp, and it went down. So what exactly happened? Because that maneuver there is that signature move of the Tejas, which is the negative G move. It came out of that in what appears to have been some sort of a barrel roll, but with no altitude to play. It was just too little, too late. There was nothing that really the pilot could do at that stage. Again, Shiv, one final point before I keep chatting with you, is that the Tejas has an incredible safety record. Only one fatal crash. This one, it started flying in 2001. Pilots swear by the safety standards of its fly-by-wire systems. It's an unstable platform. It is kept afloat on the basis of hardware and software, all made in India. It's something that works. It's something which is the premise of several new variants of the Tejas, which will come online. I talk about the Tejas over here and not what has taken place, because already, as you would expect, online there is a lot of hate over there and a lot of people saying, what is this Tejas? It's all rubbish. That's not the point over here, is it?
You're so right, Vishnu. I think we can rise above the noise of social media trolls and Pakistani propagandists who don't respect life. They have a complete lack of military culture. They don't respect the dignity of families. That's how they treat their armed forces, families of the lower ranks. Their generals enjoy their lives, but pilots, etc., don't really get very much respect in Pakistan. So I'm not surprised by the social media noise, but that's not our something that should occupy our attention even a little bit, because that is only to be expected in this time and day, especially in a year when Operation Sindoor has happened. But I wanted to add to something that you mentioned, Vishnu, which struck me as very interesting. You were talking about the fly-by-wire system, the flight control system of the Tejas, and I wanted to share a small piece of history that not many of our viewers would perhaps be aware of, and I'm being presumptuous here. Many of you will, of course, know this, but I'd like to share that story anyway. Vishnu, as you have reported on this extensively as well, when the Tejas was initially being designed in the 80s and the 1990s, the United States happened to be a partner to India in helping it develop some of the finer technologies, including the control laws that would finally feed into what became the Tejas fighters' very capable flight control computer. But after the 1998 nuclear tests happened, and when the US imposed sanctions on India, one of the victim projects of those sanctions was the Tejas fighter. There was an Indian team that had gone to the United States at that time to literally test the Tejas's control laws on American systems. That was part of the agreement. The Americans immediately pulled the plug. They slapped sanctions on India and sent that Indian team home, giving India no option but to design and test those control laws entirely at home in India using Indian technology and know-how. And that's the reason why the fly-by-wire system, the control laws, the flight control computer of the Tejas is not India plus US effort, but a completely Atmanirbhar, Indian, made in India, designed in India effort. And it is one of the pride points of the Tejas. There are other aspects of the Tejas which are American, like the engine, which we still haven't been successful in creating ourselves. But the flight control computer, the heart, the nervous system of this aircraft is very, very much Indian. And it is something that all Tejas pilots, as you've seen, Vishnu, are extremely proud of. So this is in no small measure, an Indian homegrown fighter designed and built here in India. There will be those who say that this is a setback, it's a punch in the gut, because this is an Indian fighter that has crashed in front of an international audience. And I will acknowledge that it is a terrible, these are terrible optics as far as the aircraft is concerned. But for the moment, I think the priority is to not waver even for a moment from the fact that a human life has been lost. A highly qualified test pilot has perished in a crash, at the Dubai Airshow. A kind of flight that this pilot very likely had flown many, many times before, Vishnu, was very proficient in, had trained an incredible amount for, and that's the reason why it makes this tragedy sadder, more poignant and more ironic. But I'm sure the Indian Air Force will get to the bottom of it, and will get to the bottom of it very quickly, Vishnu.
Well, joining us now, Air Marshal Anil Chopra. So thanks very much for being with us. Your first thoughts at this terrible accident and the loss of life.
Yeah, Vishnu, most unfortunate, first the accident, and more than that, the loss of life of a great professional, a test pilot, a display pilot who have been performing here itself, and we have seen him perform earlier at displays in India. Excellent pilot, but unfortunate loss. We all seen the maneuver. It was a downward repositioning maneuver, some kind of a barrel turn, but we saw that in the final stages, it could not pull out of the ground. The aircraft meshed down and then finally hit the ground, and it was a ball of fire. Unfortunately, we couldn't see the ejection seat, and now the Air Force has confirmed that we have lost the pilot. And so therefore, our condolences and my regards and respects to the family and to the Squadron boys, who would sort of be also, a little shaken up to see one of their colleagues having gone down with the aircraft. The aircraft has had a good track record. This is unfortunately the second एक्सीडेंट मैं कहता हूँ कि जैसे नजर लग गई है बेचारे एयरक्राफ्ट को from 2001 it did the first flight. This is the second aircraft lost, all within a period of nearly 1 year. The previous one was not in a display, it was a technical problem, but now this is a display. Displays are always risky. We all seen such close contact that the display aircraft is making with the ground. Extremely, they are following the edges of the envelope of the aircraft. I myself have been a flying display director at Aero India 2003. I know what goes on at an air show, how the whole thing is videographed, how we do the briefings and debriefings of all the pilots. And there is a special control room set up from where the flying display director controls, and he has with him the qualified pilot. In this case, the LCA pilot from the Squadron would have been there. He perhaps may have been the standby pilot, or he would be the guy who would be regularly involved in the briefings and debriefings of this display pilot. So therefore, we are not here to conjecture. It is a great loss. Court of Inquiry will use the fine-tooth comb to be able to go into great details. They look at aircraft serviceability, sabotage. They will look at the FDR analysis of the previous sorties. They will look at the pilot's performance, his medical and mental status, everything. They will go into great details. Luckily, this crash has taken place in an open ground. It's a desert. And therefore the FDR will be possible to get the FDR very, very quickly. By now, the chances are that the ground team would have already hit the point of impact and collected the FDR, because it's a small aircraft, unlike the Air India 171, where it took us some time because it had gone into a building and there was a huge aircraft. So I think things will happen very, very quickly, and Indian Air Force and the government will get into the action. to look at it closely. The HAL team is already there. They will also have to be involved in this whole exercise.
Marshal Chopra, can you take us through, since you have flown fighter aircraft abroad and at shows as well, are there any diplomatic aspects right now? Will it be a joint inquiry in Dubai? How does it work? The wreckage will have to be brought back to India. Can you throw some light on those aspects of it, sir?
Yeah, see, the Shiv, the people who are doing the display, the committee which is coordinating the whole air show, they will of course have to get involved. The ground, the crash crew will be Indian, which is the way, each country, when they bring the aircraft to Aero India, they bring their own crash crew, and they are the ones who will be standby. But it is not possible in a foreign country to do anything without the help of the administration. The local police will have to cordon that place. They will have to give a great amount of support, but a pure court of inquiry and technical bits will be handled by India, HAL, Indian Air Force, and but you will require diplomatic, political support from the government at this occasion. All these things are already factored at displays. They have catered for an eventuality like this, and all those protocols are in place, because every year there are so many air shows taking place all over the world. So the things have been nicely taped up and fully positioned. Yes.
Air Marshal, from what I saw of the video, there's a signature move of the Tejas called a negative G. It appears from the videos, couple of the videos, that the aircraft was in a negative G maneuver and then sort of rolled out of that. But the roll itself, it wasn't a snap roll where there was no loss of altitude. There was a significant loss of altitude. But by the end of that, the pilot appeared to bring the wings of the aircraft level. But there was simply not enough altitude to play with. Is that your reading as well?
Yeah, Vishnu, firstly I must tell you that this negative G turns very few aircraft in the world are doing, but of course they are doing, fighter aircraft are doing, because there's a way to show that the fuel system and the various other system on board can take fair amount of sustained negative G. Also shows the skills of the pilot and of the aircraft. So this negative G roll is there, but negative G, when you apply, there is a different dynamics in the body of the pilot. But then the pilot is trained for that. What exactly happened between the negative G turn and the repositioning turn that took place thereafter, I personally, from the videos that I have seen on your and other channels, I could not make out if something went wrong at that transition. So that transition part will be looked at in much greater detail. Mind you, at air shows, there are videos being taken by such a large number of people, professionals, media channels, and the team, the ground team of the Tejas itself will be doing a video channel recording. So all that will help them, do the court of inquiry, and they will go frame by frame to look at how and what maneuver was correct or incorrect, and then they will match this frame by frame with the FDR recordings, and they will play the two together on a special computers which are for the debrief, where the two can be played together, second to second, to see what could happen. And in that recording, they also will see the aircraft control surface positions, what is the input the pilot has given, the control stick position. All that comes, the number of parameters that get recorded nowadays in FDR is phenomenal. So, Vishnu, the thing that you are mentioning about this transition, maybe you have had greater access, but sitting at home, I could not make out this aspect that you are trying to mention.
Marshal Chopra, you are a test pilot, which means that as part of your flying duties and tasks, you were literally meant to fly aircraft at the very limits of their capabilities to see what they can do, test pilots are a breed apart, and we are hearing that this particular pilot in this fatal accident was also a test pilot. I wanted to ask you about those aspects of flying, sir. What does test flying involve? There is, I don't want to speculate about the causes of this accident, but there is always the possibility of disorientation as well. Very less likely for a test pilot, but always possible, and it will be something that the Indian Air Force will look at as part of the investigation. But first off, as far as test pilot flying is concerned, sir.
Yeah, Shiv, I'll tell you, as test pilots, you're trained to hit. When you go and evaluate an aircraft, whether it's an Indian aircraft or aircraft, when you evaluate abroad, you're supposed to go and check out the entire envelope, right from when you do the ground start to the time you go and hit actually the Mach numbers and the speeds and altitudes and the G that it's supposed to do, whether you do it in 2 or 3 sorties, whatever is your evaluation program you will do over there. But I want to highlight, Shiv, that beyond test flying, see, flying is evaluating an aircraft whether it's good enough, is it meeting the specs that the manufacturer has given or not. But display flying is slightly different. As I must mention, I'm the flying member in the court of inquiry for Wing Commander Joe Bakshi's accident, which happened in Palam. I happened to be an eyewitness. I also was the flight commander of the other squadron, and therefore was made the flying, member of the court of inquiry. And I got to understand that the flying, and I read many books on the psychology of a aerobatic display pilot. The aerobatic display pilot is trying to impress not the general public. He's trying to impress in that display to the world, to the manufacturers, foreign manufacturers, to professionals, the other test pilots of the world, because they're all sitting there. All the test pilots are sitting there. So it is a very different ball game. This requires a high degree of maturity. The aircraft has to be, of course, doubly, triply checked. And that, in any case, in all aviation, you don't fly an aircraft which there is the slightest amount of doubt. So there is the additional feature in a display is that you are very close to the ground, and you are close to the ground trying to take the aircraft to its limit. So there is a different ball game altogether. Yes, test pilots are chosen because in their daily routine they have understood they become part of the aircraft. There is no difference between the aircraft and them. They are one family. So therefore the test pilots are normally chosen. Also the company test pilots, it's their job to display. But I also want to mention this is not the first time an aircraft has crashed in an air show. World over, every 3-4 years we have had aircraft crashes. There are people who have ejected. There were people who in a Su-27 the pilots ejected after hitting the ground. Aircraft caught fire and then they ejected and they came out survived. There have also been cases where the people ejected in time but they fell into the fire.
I'm just interrupting you for half a second. Shiv has got some more updates coming in. Shiv, go ahead.
Vishnu, as we stand by for the Indian Air Force's first formal statement beyond their confirmation that this was a fatal accident, we've got all of the angles so far. Remember, this was at the Dubai Airshow, and that's the reason why there are multiple videos that have come in, and we've distilled all of them. This is, of course, the main video that investigators are going to be looking at, because this is the closest clip that captures the actual point of impact and the crucial last few seconds of that aircraft following the negative G-turn and then crashing into the ground. Now, this is a second video, which was actually one of the early videos that came out quite far from the crash site, where you can see panic exploding across the Dubai Airshow right after that aircraft had impacted the ground. And finally, this picture is the crash site itself. I'm awaiting pictures. I've spoken to someone at the Dubai Airshow. Videography of this site is not happening just yet, but we are expecting some pictures very soon that will establish the crash area, which is actually a wide space. Remember, the aircraft, as you can see, I'm going to ask our camera friends to follow me towards this picture. If you look at the aircraft didn't just have downward motion, but had a high degree of forward motion after its wings became level as well, and therefore there was a huge amount of forward kinetic velocity, and the aircraft practically crashed into the ground and then was dragged for several meters forward, which means that the crash site isn't one contained space but a large space, and that's what is captured in this picture of the crash site itself. Which means that the mangled remains of the aircraft are likely spread over a large area. I'm imagining at least 50 to 100 meters, if not more, which makes recovery of every part a little bit more difficult. The important thing to note is, since this was a small aircraft that has crashed, it will be relatively simple, elementary to recover the digital forensic box, the cockpit voice recorder, the black box of the aircraft itself very quickly so that the investigation can start. Remember, apart from what is in the aircraft, apart from forensics on board the aircraft itself, the recordings from the air traffic control, any other radio telemetry, etc., all of that information will also be part of the investigation dossier to look at the final moments of the Tejas aircraft. There are other videos, amateur videos taken from the air show itself, which have captured not just the last few seconds before the crash, Vishnu, but also the entire routine of the Tejas. There are high definition videos taken by proficient aviation photographers that have captured the entire flight display of the Tejas before it crashed. I am told that the aircraft was in the air for a good 11 minutes before it actually impacted the ground, which means in moments from now, in minutes from now perhaps, there should be longer high definition videos that will bear out precisely what you were talking about when you, with those pictures, told our viewers about the negative G-turn and then that tiny bit of time that the pilot didn't have to actually recover. And that's the reason why this Tejas has gone down. We're awaiting more visuals, which will arrive in just a minute from now.
All right, Shiv, thanks very much. We'll come back to Shiv Aroor in just a moment. For the benefit of our viewers who are now tuning in, there's been a horrific crash, a fatal crash of a Tejas fighter aircraft. You can see that video on your screen. This is at the Dubai International Airshow. It took place a couple of hours back. The pilot has unfortunately lost his life. His death has, it's been confirmed in a statement by the Indian Air Force. The Chief of Defence Staff has also come out with a statement. The aircraft was involved in low-level aerobatics in the final few moments of its flight because of reasons and circumstances which we will not, have a full idea of until such time as we get details from investigators. Something went wrong at that stage. The aircraft was finally wings level, but it was too late by that stage. The vertical speed was too sharp and the aircraft went down. I'm going to go back to Air Marshal Anil Chopra at this stage. Air Marshal, I'd like to talk a little bit about the squadrons themselves. These are very, very tight squadrons. The pilots are like a family. They need to be that way because they fight best in the time of a war if they are extremely tight, that there is that bond between the men and women in a squadron. Right now, that squadron would be devastated. But the leaders of that squadron would be working to keep the team alive because everybody knows the dangers of military aviation, right?
Yeah, Vishnu, absolutely. We are a very, very tight knit family. The squadrons, at this moment, his wife would be, I'm not sure, is in Dubai, or will she be in India? They'll be huddled around her. The pilots themselves would be looking at this whole thing in a much greater professional way. They will, huddle up in the squadron. They will talk about it. They talk about him and about the aircraft. But I also want to talk about this last minute maneuver that you have been talking about. Mind you, in an air display like this, you have to show the performance of the aircraft. The aircraft is, for most part of the display, in a reheat, that is afterburner is on, and even when you do a downward maneuver, of course you come off the afterburner, but you have to again start accelerating when you go down because you have to do another vertical maneuver perhaps. So you have seen that in the last part, as the aircraft wings have started straightening out, it's accelerating, as Shiv was mentioning. The aircraft is accelerating, was going downward. The engine power is still there, whether it's dry power or afterburner, we do not know yet. So the point is that the mush, the rate at which it was still descending, at some point pilots, when they watch such a display, they can make out that, oh, it's getting too late, this time he should pull, he should do something. That feeling of helplessness comes. But going back to the squadron life, we all, when I was the commanding officer, sure, there was a
so just hold on for 1 second. I just want to go back to Shiv, who's on the big video wall with us, running through a lot of that footage. Shiv, go ahead.
Vishnu, I'm hearing that the Indian Air Force will be putting out a more detailed statement in a short while from now. They've been able to collect all of the visual evidence. They're gleaning all of these pictures from social media, from NDTV and from others on the ground at this point of time. The detachment commander has been in touch with the air headquarters. So all of the channels of communication are happening right now. I understand that the family of the pilot is in the process of being informed. A very, very tragic job that the Indian Air Force will have to do. So that information is happening. So in a short while from now, there will be a slightly more detailed statement, presumably with the name of the pilot as well, who was flying this ill-fated Tejas fighter. Now, flying has resumed at the Dubai Airshow. This particular crash site was a little away from the runway and the tarmac itself, but obviously within the bubble of the Dubai Airshow itself, because that's where the display was actually happening. Remember that the Tejas that crashed wasn't the only Tejas at the Dubai Airshow. I understand that there were 3 Tejas fighters there, all of them participating in turn in the daily displays. I am not sure whether the Tejas will continue to fly at the Dubai Airshow or not. That remains a question. We've asked the Indian Air Force for clarity on that. We'll have to see how that goes. But the next update we'll be giving our viewers from here is the Indian Air Force's statement coming up in maybe 15 to 20 minutes from now.
All right, 15 to 20 minutes from now, a statement by the Indian Air Force. It is just horrific what has taken place over here. The Tejas, the pride and joy of the Indian Air Force. In a crash, we've lost a pilot at the Dubai International Airshow at an extremely low level, performing aerobatics. What really went wrong? It might take a long period of time. We'll have to figure this out. But unfortunately, one pilot has been killed in this horrific crash. We're going to keep tracking this story very closely after this short break.